When it comes to making macarons, practice makes perfect. Hello, my dears, and Happy New Year! Welcome to another episode of Me Up Buttercup, where you get to learn fun and exciting baking recipes from a talking dog. It's a brand new year, and I've decided to jump headfirst into 2021 by tackling a recipe that intimidated me for far too long. Today, I will be attempting to make French macarons. These gorgeous and delicate little sandwich cookies are well known for their precision and difficulty. But what better way to ring in the new year than to conquer my fears and test my skills in the kitchen? All right, let's get this party started. Before we begin, I want to make a note about measuring your ingredients. Macarons are all about precision. And the best way to get accurate measurements of your ingredients is by weight. Therefore, I will be weighing all of my ingredients for this recipe. If you plan to make macarons at home, I definitely suggest investing in a small kitchen scale. A scale is a truly wonderful tool to have around and essential for getting the most accurate measurements for precise recipes. For this recipe, I will be providing all of the measurements in grams. Let's start with the dry ingredients. Measure out 110 grams of almond flour and 140 grams of powdered sugar. It's important that these ingredients be very fine, so we are going to sift them at least 2 to 3 times. Sifting may seem time-consuming, but I promise with this recipe, it is well worth it. Each time you sift, discard any large pieces that do not make it through. Unless you end up needing to discard quite a bit, you should not have to replace the extra that you discarded. Once you have sifted your almond flour and powdered sugar a few times, set it aside to begin working on your meringue. To make meringue, I highly recommend using a stand mixer fitted with a whisk attachment. However, an electric hand mixer will work as well. Now, meringue is very finicky, and any bits of fat or water that get into the egg whites can cause it to not set properly. I like to wipe my bowl and whisk down with a bit of vinegar or lemon juice prior to making meringue to be sure there are no traces of fat or other residues left from other recipes. Measure out 90 grams of egg whites, making sure there are no traces of yolk in them. Many bakers like to age their egg whites by placing them in the fridge lightly covered for 24 hours prior to making the macarons. This causes the whites to dry out slightly, making them easier to whip into a meringue. Be sure that your egg whites have come to room temperature before working with them as well. Begin mixing your egg whites on medium to low speed. Once the mixture begins to look foamy, add in 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. The cream of tartar will help stabilize your meringue, but if you don't have it on hand, you may omit it. Continue mixing until the bubbles begin to tighten in size. At this point, you can slowly start adding in 70 grams of granulated sugar. Increase to medium speed until your meringue develops soft peaks. Here is where you will add any flavorings or food coloring. Be careful not to add too much of either, as too much liquid can prevent your meringue from setting up properly. I am adding 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla and a small amount of purple gel-based food coloring, because purple is one of my favorite colors. Now we will want to keep mixing the meringue until it forms very stiff peaks. This means that when you take the whisk out of the meringue, you get these little peaks that point straight upwards without falling. You can also see that the meringue begins to clump in the whisk and holds its shape very well. Once you reach this stage, stop mixing completely. Our next step will be to fold our dry ingredients into our meringue, and it is possibly one of the most critical steps when making macarons. This process is referred to as macaronage. To begin, we will add in about 1/3 of the almond flour mixture to the meringue. Now we will need to gently fold the mixture until everything is fully incorporated. Once complete, you may add in the remaining dry ingredients. Begin folding carefully, using your spatula in a circular motion around the outside and gently taking the batter over. Your goal here is to knock out just the right amount of air in the meringue. Fold too much, and your macaron batter will be runny and spread too thin. Not enough folding, and the batter will be too thick and the shells will turn out bumpy. You will know when you are finished when the batter becomes a lava-like consistency. Test it frequently by allowing some of the batter to fall off the spatula. It should flow off the spatula in a slow ribbon. You should be able to draw a figure 8 in the batter without it breaking. Stop as soon as you reach this step. When in doubt, it's always better to fold a little less than to go too far. Now it's time to pipe our macarons. Prepare your baking trays by lining them with parchment paper or using a silicone baking mat. You can see that the one I am using has templates for piping macarons placed already, but you can work without them or find printable templates online to use as a guide. Fit a piping bag with a round tip. I am using a size 12 here. Fill your piping bag with the batter, and then we will carefully pipe approximately 1.5 inch circles onto our trays. When you're piping, you'll want to hold your bag at a 90-degree angle, straight up and down. Once the piping is finished, we need to knock out those air bubbles. This part is fun! Carefully take the tray and wrap it on the counter several times. This will help pop any air bubbles hidden in our batter. You can then take a toothpick and gently pop any remaining air bubbles lurking underneath the surface, as well as smooth out any bumpy spots you might find. Our macarons are still not ready for the oven though. They will need to rest for about 30 to 60 minutes in order to form a skin on the outside. This step is important in order for the cookies to develop their feet, which is that signature frill around the base of each macaron. The time it takes is going to depend very much on the temperature and humidity of your home. Higher humidity means a longer drying time. You can help the process along by turning on a range hood fan and setting the cookies under it. You will know when they are done when they feel dry to the touch and develop a matte appearance. And now we can bake them. I bake mine one tray at a time in the middle oven rack at 300 degrees Fahrenheit or 150 degrees Celsius for 12 to 17 minutes, turning the tray after about 7 minutes. Test their doneness by gently pressing on the side of a cookie. It should feel firm and not wobble when you press on it. If in doubt, it's actually better to slightly overbake a macaron than to underbake it, as an underbaked macaron will collapse after it begins to cool down. Allow the cookies to cool on the tray for about 10 minutes, and then move to a wire rack to cool completely. As you can see, my macaron shells came out a little less than perfect, but that's okay. What I suspect happened is that the batter was just a bit too thick, and there were air bubbles that formed under the surface that didn't get popped before going into the oven. Lessons for next time. I'll just keep practicing. But moving on, now it's time to fill our macarons. How fun! You can use all sorts of fillings in macarons, including ganaches, curds, jams, or buttercream frostings. For these, I will be using a simple Swiss meringue buttercream, as it's a personal favorite of mine. To fill, take a macaron shell and pipe a small amount of filling onto the bottom. Then assemble using another shell. Oh, isn't that lovely? Once all your macarons have been filled, surely it's time to eat them, right? Alas, it is recommended that macarons be allowed to mature first before enjoying. This is the process of allowing the filling to absorb into the shell, creating a richer flavor and a delightfully soft and chewy texture. To do this, place your macarons in an airtight container and leave them in the refrigerator for 1 to 3 days. While my initial batch may have had a few bumps, so to speak, I took what I learned and tried again. And just look at how lovely these turned out. These delightful little cookies are most certainly a labor of love, but truly well worth it. The taste and texture is just indescribable, and that includes the ones that might not have looked quite as pretty. Delicate, chewy, and melt in your mouth delicious. Maybe not an everyday type of recipe, but certainly one worthy of a special occasion. And I think welcoming in a new year was just the perfect opportunity to try something new and challenging. Thank you so very much for joining me on this exciting adventure. I am looking forward to sharing so many more recipes with y'all in the new year. Let me know in the comments what type of recipes you would like to see me bake in 2021. And of course, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Much love to all of you. Until next time. Mwah!